You finally have what you wanted. Someone who texts back, who shows up, who actually seems to like you. And something is wrong. Not with them, with you. There's a restlessness you can't explain. A low hum of dread that follows the relationship around. You find yourself picking at small things. A delayed reply. A tone that might have been off. You replay conversations looking for evidence that this is about to fall apart. And when you can't find evidence, you sometimes manufacture it. You do the thing you swore you wouldn't do. You push, you pull back, you test them, and then feel terrible for testing them. This isn't self-sabotage in the simple sense. It's not that you don't want love. It's that somewhere deep in your nervous system, being loved has become the most dangerous situation of all. Here's why. Anxious attachment is one of 4 adult attachment styles, patterns in how we relate to closeness, dependency, and the risk of losing someone. We covered all 4 in our first video, but this one goes deeper. Anxious attachment develops early. When a child can't reliably predict whether their caregiver will be warm and present, whether comfort is coming or not, the nervous system makes a rational adjustment. It cranks up the threat detection system. It starts scanning constantly. Because the cost of missing a signal that the relationship is in danger is higher than the cost of too many false alarms. In childhood, that scanning is adaptive. It keeps you close to an inconsistent caregiver. It maximises your chances of getting needs met. In adulthood, the scanner doesn't stop. It just redirects onto romantic partners. The technical term is hyperactivation of the attachment system. Your brain is not at rest inside a relationship. It is on watch. It is running threat assessments in the background all the time, cataloguing signs of emotional distance, rating your partner's responsiveness, making probabilistic guesses about whether you're about to be abandoned. And the cruel irony is this: the more you care, the louder the alarm gets. A casual situationship barely triggers it. A relationship that actually matters to you. That's when the system fires at full intensity. This is where it gets specific. Because anxious attachment doesn't just feel like dread, it produces behaviour. Researchers call them protest behaviours, attempts by the anxious nervous system to restore closeness or re-establish certainty about where the relationship stands. They come in several forms. The first is seeking reassurance, asking if everything's okay when everything appears to be okay, needing to hear "I love you" more than once, because once doesn't fully land. Checking in repeatedly, not out of manipulation but out of a genuine inability to hold on to the certainty that the relationship is safe. Here's the thing most people don't understand. Reassurance works, but only briefly. The anxious system accepts the answer, the alarm quiets, and then, some hours or days later, the question comes back, because the underlying threat detection mechanism hasn't been addressed. The reassurance is a patch, not a fix. The second is testing, acting slightly cold or withdrawn to see if the partner chases. Saying it's fine when it isn't, to find out if they'll push. Picking a fight to provoke pursuit. This isn't calculated manipulation. Most people doing it aren't consciously aware of what they're doing. It's the nervous system creating conditions where the partner's love gets proved. The third is hypervigilance to tone and microsignals. A one-word reply, a slightly different hug, a pause before responding. For someone without anxious attachment, these things are noise. For someone with it, they're data. The brain processes them as potential warnings and starts preparing contingency plans. The fourth, and perhaps the most counterintuitive, is distancing. When the anxiety becomes intolerable, when the hypervigilance starts to feel unsustainable, some anxiously attached people pull back. Not because they want distance, but because they're overwhelmed. This is where it starts to look like avoidance from the outside. It isn't. It's emotional flooding followed by withdrawal. All of these behaviours share one logic: reduce uncertainty. The problem is that most of them create the very uncertainty they're trying to eliminate. Now we get to the title question. Why would an anxiously attached person, someone who is desperately afraid of losing their partner, behave in ways that risk losing them? The short answer: the anxiety isn't really about this relationship. It's running on old code. The threat detection system was calibrated to an environment that no longer exists. The child who needed to scan constantly for signs of abandonment is gone. But the system persists. And because the system is running a program it no longer needs to run, it will misread safe situations as dangerous and produce responses that are disproportionate to the actual threat. Your partner goes quiet for a day because they're stressed at work. The system reads: withdrawal, potential abandonment, activate. The response is often one of the protest behaviours: seeking reassurance, testing, pressing. And here's what happens from your partner's perspective. They were just tired. Now there's intensity they didn't expect. Now they need space. Now the distance your system detected is actually real. The brain reads the new distance as confirmation. See, I told you, you were right to be scared. The anxious system does not register that it was partially responsible for creating the distance it feared. The loop closes and the belief gets reinforced. Relationships are unstable. Closeness isn't safe. I need to keep watching. This is how anxious attachment becomes self-sealing. The fear produces behaviour that produces the outcome that proves the fear. It's worth saying something about what this feels like from the other side, because understanding it can reduce the shame that anxiously attached people often carry. A partner in this dynamic, particularly one with avoidant tendencies, which is a very common pairing, will often experience the anxiety as pressure, as neediness, as something that requires management rather than something that makes sense. They'll withdraw because withdrawal is what their nervous system does under pressure. And the withdrawal will confirm the anxious partner's fears, which will increase the anxiety, which will increase the pressure, which will increase the withdrawal. This is the anxious avoidance cycle. Each person is responding rationally to what they're perceiving. Together, they create a system that keeps both of them dysregulated. But here's what the anxiously attached person almost never hears. The intensity of your attachment is not a character flaw. It is a nervous system that learned to love in an environment where love was uncertain. You are not broken, you are operating on old wiring. The wiring can change, but you need to understand it first. This isn't a video about fixing yourself. Anxious attachment developed for real reasons, and it doesn't resolve in a week. But there are directions that research consistently points toward. The first is recognizing the loop in real time. When the anxiety spikes, when you're about to send the third message or pick a fight because you need a reaction, try to name what's actually happening. Not, he's pulling away, but my system is in alarm and I don't yet know why. Creating even a small gap between the trigger and the response is where change begins. This is harder than it sounds. The anxious system produces physiological responses: elevated heart rate, tight chest, a kind of urgency that feels exactly like something is wrong. Learning to tolerate that feeling without acting on it immediately is a skill, and it takes time. The second is working on what researchers call earned security. Secure attachment isn't only something you're born into. It can be built through corrective emotional experiences, a therapist who is consistently present and attuned, a friendship where you practice trusting, sometimes a partner who is patient enough to hold the pattern while you work through it. The key word is consistent. What dysregulated an anxious person's nervous system originally was inconsistency. What re-regulates it is the repeated experience of someone being there when expected, which slowly teaches the system that it doesn't need to scan for threats. The third is self-disclosure over self-protection. Anxious attachment often produces indirect communication, testing, hinting, creating situations where the partner has to demonstrate care without being asked. The research consistently suggests that direct vulnerability, saying what you need, naming what you're afraid of, produces better outcomes and begins to disrupt the protest behaviour cycle. Saying I'm feeling anxious and I could use some reassurance is neurologically more regulating than sending 3 slightly off messages and waiting to see what happens. This is easier if your partner understands attachment, which is part of why this channel exists. Anxious attachment is not a life sentence, it is a pattern, and patterns, by definition, can be interrupted. The most important thing is to stop treating the anxiety as information about the relationship and start treating it as information about the wiring. When the alarm fires, the relationship is often fine. The alarm is old. It's running a program written in a different time for a different environment. That doesn't make the feeling less real. It makes it more understandable. In the next video, we look at the other side of this dynamic, avoidant attachment, what it actually feels like from the inside. Not the coldness people assume, but the internal experience that produces it. If this one resonated, that one will too.